Brooks Running has a new shoe for you runners out there. Did you hear that? Better turn up your volume. In fact, turn it up to the max. Introducing the all-new Ghost Max. It's got all kinds of things to make your knees and ankles feel protected, like Max Cushion, Max Soft Landings with DNA Loft V2 foam, and Max Smooth Rides with their Glide Roll Rocker. Feel better on your run with Ghost Max. Learn more at brooksrunning.com.
Maruchan superfans are everywhere. From the busy moms who want to deliver maximum flavor in a flash to dorm room diners who want to put some slurp in their step. There are a ton of copycats you could use, but if you want to bless your bowl, there's only one true Maruchan. Whether you choose instant lunch, ramen bowls, yakisoba, or restaurant quality gold, Maruchan is the only ramen worth obsessing over. Smiles for all. Maruchan. See what all the ramen hype is about at maruchan.com.
The kettle's boiled, Vic.
Great. Perfect timing. Just a dash of milk for me, please, mate.
Here you go. Shall we get started then?
Have you ever woken up on a Sunday morning and said, I'm never drinking again, and then found yourself waving $50 at a barman by happy hour?
Are you wondering why everyone else can stop at 1 while you head to a dodgy after-party with a weird bloke called Disco Dave? If so, it might be time to take a deeper look at your relationship with your reliable social crutch, alcohol.
On each episode, we'll investigate our own dysfunctional dealings with booze and find out if it's possible to stop this deeply ingrained habit before things get too messy.
Yep, we're going to open up a shame shed of humiliating drinking stories to help you understand why waking up from a booze coma each weekend with a kebab sticking out of your top pocket might actually be negatively impacting your health.
Hamish and I are here to delve into what it's like being sober, an unwanted warts and all look into why giving up those cheeky pints or putting down those mummy wines will make you feel happier, help your anxiety and mental health, and turn you into the most sparkly, authentic version of you.
Won't that mean I become boring though, Vic?
Well, Hamish, we'll just have to wait and see. I'm Victoria Vanstone.
I'm Hamish Adams-Cairns.
And this is Sober Awkward.
Vic, I'm a bit worried.
Why is that?
Have you heard from Alan?
No, nothing.
Doesn't feel right.
I know. Hope he's not in jail.
Is he meant to be back by now?
I think so.
Right.
Yeah, we're hoping he's got to build us another sound booth, haven't we? We've got to get back to at least to do that.
Don't die, Alan. You need to build us a new sound booth.
He's probably ignoring my text messages because I'm like, are you all right? Where are you?
Where's my booth? Where's my booth?
Where's my booth? Hurry up. Yeah, so hopefully Alan will be back from his football tours pretty soon. Yeah. Otherwise, we might have to contact the authorities.
He might be in the newspaper for bad reasons.
Yes.
But you've been in the newspaper for good reasons this week.
Well, I don't know. Often people say to me, like, Vic, oh, getting a bit famous now, aren't you? I'm like, yay, famous for being a drunk. Hurrah. So that was a bit like one of those situations. I recently was interviewed for the Daily Mail, which is always a bit scary with these sort of tabloid papers because you're never quite sure what they're going to say. And we're talking about labels today, though, so this is a good topic to start with. They put on the front page, I'll start at the beginning actually. I got a text in the morning from a friend of mine saying, you're in the Daily Mail today, which I knew I was going to be said, but the pictures are not of you. I was like, what do you mean? And she texted me the link and I opened it up and it was a picture. 3 pictures actually of somebody standing on a mountain like going yay, a random woman and somebody in a hospital bed.
Yeah, and I think these were 3 different women. I don't think it's the same person.
It's
even.
Not even the same person. So that I was like, oh fucking hell, what are they going to have written if they've just used pictures of a random person? And one of the things I said to the journo was, look, this is not a rock bottom story. There is no drama here. Sometimes there is no drama in over drinking. It's just somebody in their bedroom sitting with their finger on their pulse wondering if they're going to die. There's no big, vomiting on a room full of people and making a fool out of yourself sometimes. It can be quite a private thing, especially if you're just sober curious and it hasn't got extreme and you're just questioning your alcohol. All that is happening is it's something going on in your brain. So I didn't want this to be like rock bottom mother or drunk mother or anything like that. Anyway, the headline ended up being alcoholic mother.
Yes.
Ooh.
Which I found unusual because actually she then wrote, I think so she, that in the second paragraph it was, Vic said that she wasn't an alcoholic, and continued the sentence. It's like, why have you put alcoholic in the title but not in the main body? Is it just clickbait? And I think probably was.
I think it's so funny because I was surprised by it. I was like, I said, please don't use the word alcoholic, even though I admit that's probably what I am. I do not like that label for myself. It just doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't give people the right impression. And actually, I spoke to my mum. I was like, oh, did you see I was in the Daily Mail today? And she was like, yeah, Dad said, oh, God, when he read it. Because they said, his daughter's an alcoholic. My dad doesn't want to read that because it conjures up the wrong image of what I am, and it makes people think that they have to get to that stage before they can seek help, which of course isn't the case. But actually, I will say is that if you ignored the title and ignored the 3 pictures of the random woman, whoever that was, I must say they did change it when I contacted them and said, actually, that's not me. The content of the article was actually really good, and it got all our links right, and it expressed that notion really, really well. So it ended up being okay, and we got loads of new cuppa members yesterday. I got loads of new follows on Instagram. So for me, I'm willing to take a hit for the team and be called an alcoholic, that occasionally, if it means I can get my message out there a bit better.
You were the most famous alcoholic mum yesterday, which is not a good thing to be.
It is not great, is it?
No.
I wonder if my kids' teachers read stuff like that. I wonder what they think, because that isn't the case. That is not the image. I wasn't passed out in a pile of vomit with the baby crawling out of me, out of me.
Interesting. A baby crawling out of you in a pile of vomit.
No,
is that what your label story was?
That is actually true. But yeah, it's not that imagery. And that is what we're talking about today.
That is it. In today's episode, Vic, we will be focusing on labels.
Clothing labels, Hamish?
No, not them. Although I have found them to be my son Sonny's favourite part of every toy he has.
Oh, yeah, babies love sucking on labels.
Honestly, you've got this amazing, colourful frog or whatever it is, and he's just playing with the label, giggling.
It's like Christmas presents. I just used to play with the boxes or
the wrapping,
or the ribbon.
Or those weird S-shaped sponges.
Oh, yes. They
fun.
stick on, Yeah, weird, Hamish. So not those sort of labels, Hamish. Are you instead referring to humanity's deeply ingrained nature of categorising and classifying people to avoid being overwhelmed in social situations?
Wow. Yes, that is exactly what I'm referring to.
Yeah, I thought so.
Over the course of this week's episode, we want to take a deep look into what labels are, why we use them, and how they might positively or negatively impact you in your sobriety.
It might come as a surprise to you that not all labels are necessarily bad. For everyone who feels frightened and trapped by being labelled an alcoholic, there are many others like us who were liberated by terms like sober curious.
Absolutely. So, Vic, let us begin by asking the question, why do we use labels? How did this all begin?
Well, Haim, like I so intelligently put at the start, humans label and categorise in order to avoid being overwhelmed in social situations.
What does that actually mean, though?
We are not used to knowing and interacting with the amount of people that we know today. Our race grew up in small villages where you would know everyone by name. The world's population has now exploded to such a degree that we know far more people than our teeny little brains can handle.
Not me.
Your teeny little brain.
My tiny little
brain. It's
brain.
all been categorised for you because of your very, very, very tiny brain.
I feel attacked. I actually don't know too many people that can handle. I rarely get out much anymore.
No, fair
Outside
enough.
of my wife and my son, this is pretty much the only interaction I get every week.
True. Oh dear. I would probably label you a boring middle-class father of one. How does that feel?
Offensive.
Yeah. That's the point. Socially, it can be difficult to deal with a world of this many people, so labels help us compute it all. I compute.
I see, you're a robot. This sounds a little bit like the stress I get from having all the different spice jars in different areas of my kitchen cupboard.
Yes,
right?
I understand,
Yeah, I think a lot of people will be nodding along to this. I get that arranging them to the point where I can see all the labels might be the most satisfying part of my week. Does that make me a boring middle-class father of one with OCD?
Yes. Yeah, I think it actually does. It doesn't sound very rock and roll, Hamish, but I hear you. It is very satisfying when they all sort of sit together and fit in. Yeah. So what are the effects of these labels, though, really?
Labels reflect how people think about others and themselves. They aid people in understanding differences in needs, culture and personalities. They can also reflect positive characteristics, set useful expectations, and provide meaningful goals. At the same time, labelling can create misunderstandings and stereotypes. Whether good or bad, labelling has an important influence on identity and society.
Gosh, it's interesting. Shall we discuss some of the times we've been labelled in our lives, Hamish?
Let's do it. This is a rabbit hole I want to go down.
Well, yeah, because I wasn't sure whether you meant like with alcohol or other things, because there are other ways I've been stereotyped,
Yeah,
I
so
think,
I wanted to
before.
start on like just times that you've been labelled and their effect, and then we'll get to the alcohol
Okay,
ones.
because I thought I'd start young and go through my life and think about different times when I was
your journey.
late. My journey to sobriety. First one was tomboy.
Okay.
I was labelled a tomboy. I didn't mind it because I liked being the one that was eating slugs and covered in mud.
Yeah.
Didn't bother me. Liked being a tomboy. It made me sort of part of a crew. So that was a good one.
Did you play up to it more having been given the label?
Yeah, I didn't mind it. I was like, yeah, that's good. That describes me well.
Cool.
That's exactly
All
what
right.
I was. At school, I was the class clown. Didn't mind that either.
That's good.
These were labels that I sort of was happy to live up to. Rebellious teen, of course, in my teenagers, lived up to that. That wasn't necessarily good for my parents, but I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah. You felt badass?
Yeah, I felt like it was much more fun being the rebellious one rather than a bit of a square.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool. So I didn't mind that one. Then I became a nomad. Like everyone was like, oh, she's just a nomad. She's off travelling the world. She doesn't know. She's a gypsy.
That's quite cool again.
Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah.
It suited me. I didn't mind being some of these things. That's what we're saying today. It's like not all of them are bad. But then they did change a little bit as I grew older. Party girl was one, of course. I liked it back in the day. It made me feel sort of windswept and interesting. Like the only remnants of me you'd find was the fading smell of party poppers or a lone floating feather from my feather boa. I sort of had a romantic image of what a party girl was, not somebody with their eyes rolling in the back of their head, passed out in a bathroom.
Sure. Is
So
it the
yeah.
poppers I'm thinking about?
Poppers,
or?
yeah.
What kind of poppers?
Yeah. Yeah. Not those sorts, Hamish. Not those kids' drinks. Yeah, so I gave things a romantic edge because then it made it more acceptable
Yeah.
to be that thing. I sort of made it okay in my brain.
Yeah.
The other one was the gulper, which was Lucy would agree with. We were both called gulpers because we drank fast. I realise now that's probably a bit derogatory saying someone he's a bit of a gulper, but I didn't mind that either. So
No,
these
I
are all
don't
the
think
good
that's
ones.
too bad.
It's
I
not
think
too bad.
gulper's too
No, these
nasty.
are all not too bad. I accepted all these ones as part of my journey to
Part of my
sobriety.
journey.
The one I like now is writer.
Ah, do you use that about yourself?
An author. I've started to write. I'm looking forward to filling in my passport forms because now I've got the
Writer.
book deal. I can write that.
Yeah.
People have described me recently as an advocate, Hamish.
Yeah, that's nice.
No, I don't like it.
You don't?
Nah, I think it's a bit wanky.
You like gulper, but advocate you don't. Interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting, actually. I mean, everyone's an advocate nowadays, aren't they? You can be an advocate for the rights of tomatoes or standing up for twiglets.
Yeah,
like, you can be an
okay.
advocate
I
of nothing.
see
It doesn't
what
really
you
mean
mean.
anything.
All right.
You know, you can just have a silly label. It sort of takes away the true meaning. If everyone's an advocate, then what is an advocate?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do get that.
Yeah, so I just feel like if everyone's doing something, it sort of takes away the importance of it.
Mm-hmm.
So the bad labels that I got called, so they were all my pretty good ones. I was quite happy with all
Okay,
those,
yeah.
even though like advocate is still positive, isn't it? Really, the one that I've been called a lot in the past was lost.
Oh, yeah, that stings.
She's a bit lost. And really, I thought, gosh, that's a bit harsh. But now looking back, I can see why people said that about me. I don't think people know that I was called that. A couple of people have called me that in the past, and I found out about it. And I didn't like it. Because actually, I wasn't lost. I was just finding myself. I know that sounds cheesy, but I was kind of happy. I had to go through what I went through to get to here, if you know what I mean. It's all part of the journey.
Interesting. Finding yourself is positive, and lost is kind of the same thing, but the negative side of it, isn't it?
So true.
If you go,
Like,
she's gone travelling to find herself, and cool.
Yeah.
If you go, she's gone travelling, she's a bit lost. You think,
Yeah.
Oh, how sad.
especially if you are actually lost.
Yeah, which happens quite
Like
a lot.
Alan.
Both of us, yeah.
Who's gone missing? He's lost.
He's lost. Well, maybe he's finding himself.
Yeah, he's lost
He's
in
on a
more ways
journey.
than one. Yeah, so that was something I didn't like. The other one I hate is supermum.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
I think the pressure of that label, oh, she's a supermum, how do you get it all done? It's like, actually, no, I'm not a supermum. I cry into my pillow most nights. And I
Interesting.
swear, and I'm a shit parent sometimes. Oh, no, but you're a supermum. I'm like, no.
But I think that is said as a compliment,
It
and then
is,
you
but-
have translated it as put a pressure on yourself.
It makes me feel less than.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not a label I like because nobody's super mum. We're all struggling. It's sort of shit sometimes, and we can't be super mums.
We're all making it up as we go
We're all
along.
making it up as we go. There's nothing super about it. Shit mum would be more like it.
There must be days when you feel like a super mum, when all the kids are behaving themselves and all the toys are packed away and you've done a meal and everyone's in bed.
I would say I just feel like a relief mum then.
Okay,
It's not like a super mum. I just feel like, oh my God, now I can rest for 5 minutes and not worry about anything. There's no super. I don't go, hurrah to me, and put on a cape and jump around going how brilliant I've been. I'm just like, thank God that's over. They're all asleep. Now I can watch some shit telly.
Okay. I'll make sure I write shit mum on my Christmas card to you this year.
To the shittest mum I know. Merry Christmas.
No pressure. We'll live up to the shit mum. It's a very easy life.
So funny. I'm surprised how many of these I came up with, aren't you? There's a lot of them. Bubbly. People say, oh, she's a bit bubbly.
You don't like that?
No.
Again,
I think it
that's
means
positive.
tubby and jolly.
Yeah, jolly.
Jolly and tubby.
No, tubby is, you've made up.
Oh, she's a bit bubbly.
It's got nothing to do with that.
It's just my weird interpretation of
Bubbly
things.
is energetic, fun.
Okay, well, slag bag was the next one.
Slag bag is bad. Okay, there's no positive spin on slag bag.
Somebody called me a slag bag once when I snogged her boyfriend. I also got called a slapper and a tart once, but that was by some real mad girl who was trying to fight me. Yeah, so that wasn't a good one. And then it comes to the booze ones, which we're going to talk about, which were things like alcoholic, binge drinker, booze bag, problem drinker, pisshead, anything that gave anyone the wrong image of me.
Yeah.
I like to keep it light. I think that's what I've discovered. If I keep the labels light, I get to hide from the seriousness of them.
Did you like any of the booze ones?
Pisshead, I didn't mind.
Yeah, was there kind of like a pride in like...
Funny. As long as it kept funny. I was like, oh, this is funny. Oh, she's a bit of a pisshead. She's a booze bag. Ha, 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 ha.
And a bit what am I like?
Yeah,
you know?
and they're just words. But yet still, if someone said, oh, she's a bit of an alcoholic, ha, 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 I'd be like, shut the fuck up.
True.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you played, once someone calls you a pisshead, do you feel like you wanted to drink in front of that person to live up to the name?
Yeah, for sure. Like, look at me, what a good time girl. Look what a laugh I am.
Interesting.
Yes, and that label can cause you to probably drink more, I would say.
God, you've had quite the journey with labels.
I have had the journey with labels.
Mine are
The journey with the labels.
Mine are less interested in that.
Come on.
I'm on this podcast as a normal drinker.
Yeah, that is your label.
Which part of me likes because I think it's cool that you can give up boozing if you don't have a problem with it.
Yep.
Part of me doesn't like the word normal in any sense. Normal is difficult to separate from boring. Mm-hmm. So normal sounds a bit boring. So I don't love that one. But I'm sort of, I see both sides of the coin on the normal drinker label that I've got for this podcast.
Yeah.
But with that in mind, I guess most of my labels have not been connected to drinking except for being called a lightweight and also half pint hame. Neither of which are great. Although half pint hame is quite fun because we've got lots of photos of me with a half pint next to people with a full pint.
Oh.
And that's always a funny photo.
That is a funny photo.
But I would just say, well, they've just got really big hands. Where it's got my drink.
It's real size.
Yeah.
Lightweight isn't a great one though, because basically what you're saying with lightweight, I used to call people lightweights all the time. Like, you're a bloody lightweight.
Yeah.
Come on, get another drink down you. And actually it's like bullying behaviour.
That's not how I used it.
Okay.
I used it as you guys do rounds, I'm a lightweight. Well, I won't have a shot, I'm a bit of a lightweight.
Yeah, okay.
So, I've only drunk 2 beers in the last 2 hours because I'm a lightweight.
Okay, so
it's
you
kind of a get out of jail free
yes,
card.
you owned it, whereas
Yeah.
I was kind of putting it onto people. Like, I would be to you, like, come on, Hamish, don't be such a lightweight.
Yeah. Whereas when we first start drinking, it's obviously cool to be a heavyweight.
Yes.
So it's not cool that girls knew that I was a lightweight. And
But
people
isn't-
were like, I can drink 8 pints, and girls thought that was cool.
I don't think girls think that's cool.
Maybe just
I would rather
I'd
have
a
gone
bad
out.
crowd.
Yeah, I would have rather gone out with a lightweight than somebody who could drink 8 pints.
Really?
But I always went out with people that drank 8 pints.
See, I would rather go out with a lightweight because cheaper date.
Yeah, definitely a cheaper
Yeah,
date.
nice. We're both stingy is what we're saying.
Stingy mothers.
And then you've also, did you use the No Game Hame nickname in this episode?
No, I've used it recently
I
though.
told you I never wanted to hear it again in this country because it's a UK thing. But you keep spreading it.
I think I used it in my Christmas poem.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
you did? Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah.
It's forever recorded there.
Yes.
So, I did have No Game Hame for a bit. I guess the one that I've had most of my life is like Hame is always happy. Hame's like the happy guy.
Yeah.
And this is a good thing and a bad thing. I like the fact that people think I'm happy. I like the fact that people call me for a good time because I'm the happy guy. Why I have that nickname in most people's that I know's head. I don't know. I guess maybe I'm smiley. I guess I have a positive spin on things. One of the good outcomes of this is that I do have the smiliest child.
Oh, yes, you do. He's the smiliest boy in the world.
I think people say that about their own children, but I have loads of people that have children.
No, he's particularly smiley.
He's particularly smiley.
Yeah.
And I can't take all the credit for that. I mean, he has a great mum. If I had his mum, I would be smiling all the time as well.
True.
But I do have a happy child. So that is a good thing. The negative of that is if you are actually having a bad day, and I sort of feel like I have to play up to this label.
Yeah.
So I guess I have to be happy. So I have to cheer your day up. So I'm not allowed bad days.
Yeah.
I think I've sort of separated myself from that in the last 5 years.
Okay.
But I did feel a certain pressure to live up to the happy guy nickname for a while.
And also people might not know when you're sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we talked a little bit about this in our men's mental health episode, that sometimes people that have that reputation, which I did too, as being the happy guy, the happy girl, they're putting on an act sometimes, and therefore you don't get the real story.
And I think also within like a family dynamic, I'm the youngest sibling. So I think I sort, you kind of get, I've never been picked on, but like you're sort of the idiot. He always does silly things. And I think genuinely within my family setup, I probably make more mistakes, like silly things, like, booking a flight with a 24-hour layover rather than a 2-hour layover, that sort of thing. Yeah. Because I've got that name in my family dynamic. Yeah. I think there is something in that. Like someone calling you a Muppet every day, then you kind of start behaving like a Muppet. It's
a funny one because I have a little bit of a reputation in my family of breaking things.
Right.
Like Vicky, she always breaks things. But yeah, I did break things when I was a kid, but I don't break things now. And it's like these labels stick around, don't they?
Yeah.
That's quite frightening because you're labelled something throughout your life. And for some people, their idea of you and their label that they've attached to you, it doesn't evolve. And therefore you can get stuck with labels that you don't like. I don't like being called, she breaks everything. She's like this, she's like that. You've always been this way. I think that's really stunted to approach someone who's grown and lived a whole life and say you are still like that. Because you're not often. These labels can be momentary, like me being a tomboy or me being a party girl. Labels don't have to represent you throughout your whole life. If you would like to support the Sober Awkward podcast, we're excited to announce that we've joined Patreon. Patreon is a membership platform which allows you to give back for the content you love.
By buying Sober Awkward a cuppa once a month, we can keep the giggles coming and continue sharing our sobriety message.
By joining Patreon, you get access to Sober Awkward merch, extra content, special promos and loads more. Just find the link in the show notes or head to patreon.com and search for Sober Awkward.
And together we can learn how to feel the awkward and do it anyway. So let's discuss some of the labels you might face, either in your drinking years or in your sobriety. All right, we'll start with those associated with drinking. I know that Vic's mentioned a few that she had already. And then we'll make our way along the journey to sobriety.
Yeah.
Okay?
So where are we going to start, Hamish?
Well, we've mentioned alcoholic, which we'll focus on a little bit more in more detail in a second.
Okay.
That's always a big one to start with.
Yep, and then there's problem drinker.
Yeah, which you've sort of used as your thing. You sort of wedded yourself to problem drinker, I guess, is a more forgiving way, like an alternative to alcoholic. Problem drinkers a step down and much kinder, right?
Definitely. I would say I was a problem drinker. I was somebody that couldn't stop once she started, and that was a problem because it made me unwell. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And I don't mind that language. Because I think also the word alcoholic, it reminds me of anonymous and being alcoholic and being anonymous, which of course is, I don't want to associate with that brand or with that label because I'm not about being anonymous. I'm about you talking about your sobriety and putting it out there and being open about it. I'm not about it being kept behind closed doors and it being a secret. So both of those words don't resonate with me, and that's why I choose a different label.
Is the opposite of anonymous nimbus?
Yeah.
We want to be nimbus in our sobriety.
Non-nimbus.
Yes. Another obviously negative word along with alcoholic is addict. Addicts Addict's filthy. Addict's a dirty one.
Yeah, that's what the people think, isn't it? That I wonder what the definition of an addict is. Like, I'd like to look that up, actually. I might have a look at that. But it's just somebody that can't stop doing something. And really, the definition isn't that bad. But when you hear that word, it conjures up an image of somebody on heroin behind a 7-Eleven jacking up with a needle. It's not true.
It's belittling, isn't it?
It is
if you were called
belittling.
an addict, you'd feel very small, I think.
And it makes you sound like people are addicts all their lives. They may have had an addiction at some point, but they're still an addict no matter what. And to have that label throughout your life once you've given something up, I'm not sure that's going to be helpful. But as we'll find out later in the podcast, sometimes it can be.
Yes, that's exactly what you need for some people.
Party boy and party girl. Well, I said I didn't mind that back in the day, but now I realise that party girl probably just needed a cuddle rather than a line of coke.
Sure.
Yeah. So that party girl was a good image that I had, but actually I was probably suffering a little bit, and you shouldn't have given me, that extra gram of speed. You should have taken me to a therapist.
Cuddles, not coke could be our slogan for the new series.
I love it. Cuddles, not coke.
Cuddles, not coke. We'll go out giving them we'll get stickers and we'll go to clubs and we'll give it to the party boys and girls.
Yeah.
Stickers, cuddles, not coke. Cuddles, not coke. The final one isn't a label. I've cheated a little bit. It's more like a phrase that gets bandied around a lot, which we've talked about in the past, which is at their best after a drink.
Oh, that's such a load of rubbish, isn't it?
Comes up a lot in like best man speeches.
Yeah.
Don't like it a lot.
No. The other ones are binge drinker and substance abuser. I mean, both of those, it depends. Like binge drinker, I was a binge drinker. I was happy to say that. I wasn't someone that had one glass of wine a day or a couple of glasses throughout the week. I was someone that saved up my drinking so that I could do all my units in one sitting and then recover from that and then go again. So actually, I think binge drinker is quite factual. That was how I drank, and there's no looking outside of that label for me, and I'm happy to be called that. That's what I was. Substance abuser. Alcohol is a substance.
Yeah.
Abuser, I mean, that puts the onus onto the person that's doing it, and it makes it their responsibility. It's the same with gambling and that phrase, gamble responsibly. Abuser, it all puts it onto the person, which I find is very, very heavy and very shameful, and it makes it like it's your fault. Whereas, of course, everything in gambling is designed to make you gamble. It's not your fault. It's the bloody corporate companies making you do it. So all of those things that make it your fault, and it's like pointing the finger, I don't like those.
Surprisingly, these can have both positive and negative effects on those they are aimed at. Let's start by focusing on this term alcoholic, Vic. I think that's sort of the most important one.
It is, totally. I mean, I cringed when it was in the paper yesterday.
Yeah, I cringed for you.
Yeah, it didn't make me feel comfortable. I don't want people to think that I was an alcoholic for some reason. I just think it has a bad image. It's not what you want people to think you are.
But the flip side of that was for Lucy. She spoke about it in an early episode. That was like a key that unlocked her sobriety. It was such a heavy word, and you'll know better than me from what she said, but it was such a heavy word that it was frightening, and she was like, I am an alcoholic. Be able to say that about yourself can sort of scare you into change.
Totally. I think there are benefits of calling yourself an alcoholic if you want to. Yeah. She found that the seriousness of the word and the controversy that comes with it was what made her change. She knew that by calling herself that, she had to do something about it, which was very different to me. So there are definitely two sides of this coin. If you're comfortable with saying, I'm an alcoholic, and owning it, I think there is something very prideful in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's frightening.
Yeah, it totally helped her. It's interesting, isn't it? So, yeah, it definitely made her recognise where she was going wrong, and it pushed her to seek help.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Weirdly, we do still live in a world where if you choose to become sober, you sort of have to come out to your friends and family.
Yeah, it's like coming out of the closet.
No.
This can be awkward, but it can also be fantastic in holding you accountable for your decision.
The difficulty is finding the right words to explain why.
To communicate this accurately, you're probably going to have to find a term or label that best sums up what you mean. You don't, of course, have to scare yourself into sobriety with terms like alcoholic if you don't want to.
Allow us to introduce you to the term sober curious.
Yes.
Vic, this has been a game changer for both of us.
Yep,
right?
Yep.
Tell me how you first came across it, what it's done for you.
Well, I think I found this term. I've told the story before, but I'll tell you again. I was in the library. I'd been sober for 18 months on my own with no resources. I was really sort of white knuckling it. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't want anybody to know what I was doing. It felt very private, very amongst me and my husband. I didn't want to tell people what I was doing. I was in a library one day and I said to the lady, do you have any books on alcoholism? And she handed me a book by Ruby Warrington called Sober Curious. And I read the title. I was like, oh my God, that is me. Somebody who laid in bed and questioned their alcohol intake. Yeah. It didn't feel awkward. It didn't feel heavy. It felt like the clouds were parting and some like God hand had sort of come down out of the sky and took my hand and gone, this is going to be okay. Wow. That's how massive that term was for me. So I appreciate Ruby Warrington. I don't know whether she coined that or whether she's labelled that as her term, but I don't care. Whoever made that term up is like a god to me, I'd say, because that helped me understand who I was. And not only that, it gave me access to a community that I didn't even know existed.
It's funny, when I heard the term, part of me, probably 20% of me goes, what? No, I don't want to be called sober curious. Like any kind of label, I'm just like, oh, that sounds a bit gooey. Yep. But it does kind of sum it up. And I think the reason I like it is because it's open to everyone.
Yeah.
Like everyone is probably at least a little bit sober curious.
Everyone. I don't think there's one person in the world who hasn't woken up with a stinky hangover and gone, why did I have that extra glass of bourbon last night?
Yeah.
Because that is the question. That's all it's about, questioning in your brain on your own with no one else around, those questions that are popping up silently in your brain.
And
that is what it is.
Curiosity is such a beautiful
it is.
thing. You want your children to be curious. You want people to ask questions and want to learn more and peek behind the door of things and expand their brains.
It's progressive.
It is, isn't it? So I kind of feel like it's also a really good answer when people ask you why I don't drink. I'm sober curious.
Yeah.
I'm
interested in something else beyond this.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good way.
And it's also not terminal. It's not, I'm going to be sober the rest of my life.
No.
I'm going to be sober curious for a bit and see what it's like.
Yeah.
It's quite soft.
It's very soft. Yeah. I often describe it as that warm hug. It's not like someone slapping you around the face and saying, you're an alcoholic and this is what you're going to be and you've got to give up drinking forever and all of these other things. It's actually just like a warm hug saying, it's okay to question and there are lots of people like you and come and join us.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's lovely. So sobriety labelling is actually a really kind of intricate topic, isn't it, Hamish? There are so many different aspects to it. Some are good, some are bad, and really it depends how you feel. Most of the labels that we face in our sobriety are to do with being boring or weird. These are obviously negative and usually attributed to us by drinkers, or we call ourselves boring as a means of self-defence before somebody else says it.
Sure.
I've been called boring a lot. I mean, my auntie was on the phone the other day. It was coming up to Christmas and she said, to my mum, it must be boring round your house at Christmas now because nobody there drinks. And I was like, just going to let that go. Like, people have their opinion of it as being boring, but they don't know the reality of it. Of course, it's not boring.
Is that just generation? Like, are you hearing that from people your age and younger, or was it our parents' age?
I would say it's definitely generational.
That's what I think.
Yeah. It was boring. If you were growing up in the 80s, you had a little bit more money, you spent it on booze, you're a bit more of a partier. I just think that is a generational thing, was to sort of show off your wealth or show off your sort of social prowess with the amount of drinks you could offer people. That was what it was like for me growing up in the 80s. You came to my parents' house, they had the posh glasses and the cocktails and everyone was dressed up and it was a scene. It was a scene then where it's in fact probably still goes on, Hamish, but I'm not in that scene anymore. So whether we think it's generational because we're not in it anymore or whether it is something that still goes on.
You know what's always thrown me about that generation is having those glass-fronted cabinets that have like the best plates or glasses in them. What is that?
The drinks cabinet.
But
that's
but
another thing.
It's almost like a piece of art. Like you don't even use them. They're just like the posh plates that are standing up in a glass.
That was the 80s thing. It was like having like yuppies having filofaxes and looking busy and mobile phones. It was all about how you looked, wasn't it? And my mum in those tracksuits. Remember those furry tracksuits?
Yeah,
it was very 80s thing. And big hair. It was about like showing your wealth and showing how you were in society.
Right.
So I don't know whether people are like that as much anymore. It's interesting. So you don't have to label them because you don't see that people are trying as hard.
Yep.
Yeah, it's weird. I never really have wanted to be considered to be boring. Like that is my worst thing, for somebody to call me boring. Yeah. That label for me is awful. So it makes me want to act not boring. So it's like when I went to Government House recently for that Rethink Addiction conference. I thought, I don't want to be boring. I'm going to go and steal some toilet roll.
Sure.
Yeah. Because I thought, God, this is all boring and corporate and everyone's in suits and we all have to swan around trying to be nice to each other. Situations that are boring make me feel rebellious.
Yeah.
So I go into my non-boring brain and like, right, what can I do in this situation so that people don't think I'm boring? Because I hate that label so much.
That's always a good question, you know, when people ask you, what is it? You know, what's the thing you most dread being called by someone, like as they leave the situation they're with you?
Yes, yeah.
And they walk, or are you overhear
as they walk away.
You think they've hung up the phone, they haven't.
Yeah.
And God, that guy's.
Yeah, God, he's boring.
Boring is probably the word for me too.
Oh, is it?
I reckon.
Yeah. It would be awful. I'd be like, what are you talking about?
Vanilla,
I'm not boring.
Bit vanilla.
Bit beige.
Oh, it's the worst.
Yeah, he's a bit beige, isn't he?
I'd rather you hate me than think I was vanilla.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get so annoyed with my husband, right? Every time we go to the ice cream place, he just wants to have vanilla. And we actually had a bit of a moody moment this weekend. I'm like, look, I don't get the ice cream, okay? This is the problem here, Hamish. I don't get the ice cream, I eat his.
Yeah.
Because that means that I'm not having an ice cream because I'm always on a diet.
Yeah, brilliant.
So I have his, but I don't want him to have vanilla because I want salted caramel. But I make him get salted caramel even though he wants vanilla because I think vanilla's boring.
You know, he's sitting on a podcast somewhere else going, I'm really getting annoyed with my wife. She does this thing. She always eats half my frickin' ice cream.
But I'm just like, why would you have vanilla when you can have salted caramel?
Interesting thing. I've always judged people for getting margaritas, but now I think actually the real pizza connoisseurs get the margarita. It's like a staple of like, if it's a good pizza place, the margarita is good enough. So now I'm coming back round to the boring pizza choice.
Okay, yeah, and you sort of own it because you're confident in your sobriety.
Yes.
Like, I'm actually going to do the things that I love, which is to eat vanilla ice cream and have a margarita.
No, that doesn't sound quite right. Now that you've said it,
yeah,
I'm regretting it.
I'm going to have like full veggie special with like extra chili, extra olives. I'm going full not boring here.
Or when people go, the water's included in the meal, do you want still or sparkling? Still. What?
How boring.
Sparkling, come on.
Yeah, come on.
Eat it out.
Yeah.
Friday.
Actually, we just arrived at this posh recording studio today and there is sparkling water on tap. And I was like, Hamish, they've got free biscuits and sparkling water on tap. This is amazing.
It's true.
Spot the boring sober people.
Tell it was like our first time here.
Yeah.
Everyone else is playing it cool. We're like, look, they've got free cookies. Vic came out the loo. They've got free Tampax.
The small things excite me, Hamish. So yeah, I realise now that I was really scared of being boring in my drinking days. But then I realise again that actually the fear of being boring affected my mental health in the end.
Wow.
I was so scared of being boring that I drank myself into oblivion, which actually made me unwell, which is ridiculous and irrational, isn't it? But it was all about how I came across to other people in the end. So I didn't care as long as they didn't think I was boring. But I realise now that was a total waste of my time and my energy and my health.
Yeah. And actually, maybe at your core, you were a little bit boring and you wanted to act out just to sort of cover that truth in you.
Yeah.
I'll just be fun and crazy all the time so people never see that side of me.
And it's something that people say all the time to me is, are you boring? Isn't it boring? And I'm going, well, what is boring?
Yeah.
Is boring contentment? Is boring peace? Is boring being able to sit on your own and have a nice time? Is boring doing Scrabble and Wordle and watching your favourite show or reading a book? Like, what is boring? I embrace the boring. Boring is cool nowadays.
Interesting.
Yeah, be boring. Come and be boring with me.
Yeah.
It is the best.
It is an interesting insight, isn't it? What is boring? I guess I don't know what boring is. If you're
I'm
happy,
bored.
if
When
you're
my kids
happy,
say,
does it really matter?
Well, I say to my kids, they say I'm bored. I'm like, brilliant. Like being bored. I mean, you've got nothing to do. How lovely.
Yeah. What luxury.
Yeah, what a luxury.
Yeah.
We'll run around like headless chickens all day, getting work done and dinners and all this other stuff. If you're bored, enjoy that moment.
Yeah.
Just soak it up.
See, I've got a slightly different relationship with boring. I back myself to be one of the least boring people in the room.
Yeah.
I know that I'm not boring. So actually,
you are not boring. I
if
agree.
somebody called me boring, I don't think it would. I think part of me thinks, yeah, it's the thing I'd least like to be called. Part of me thinks, I know I'm not, so it wouldn't hurt.
Yes, but would you physically attack someone if they said that? I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I'd attack them probably.
I don't think I would go to violence.
Oh, okay, I would.
I think I'd be like, well, you're an idiot. Or maybe you don't understand me. Or like, you don't know me
You don't
at
know
all.
me, yeah.
So that is a worse reflection on you for jumping to conclusions.
Yep, so
rather
true.
than getting to know me.
It's perhaps important to remember that although words can hurt, they can also encourage, or they can be totally ignored.
Although this seems really hard for many of us, fundamentally, we are social beings who are concerned with what others think or say about us.
Exactly what you were just saying, Hamish, with that boring thing.
I know. But if we choose to instead focus on our actions rather than our words, then everything we've said earlier in this episode actually becomes defunct.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. This part of the podcast is us saying, ignore everything we just said before and just stop caring what people say and think.
Yeah, that is so true. Yeah, because that's where the labels matter, isn't it? I've often said that the least interesting thing about going sober is giving up alcohol, and that is true. What it really does, it gives you an opportunity to grow and strengthen as a person, and no longer caring what people think or say about you is precisely one of these opportunities. No labels at all.
Other than getting to the point where you can ignore labels, or at least tune out the negative ones, how else can we approach labels in a way that will help us in our sobriety?
You just need to find a label that works for you, Hamish. Use one as much as you can that you like. If it feels good, stick with it.
Yeah. Or just prove the label is wrong.
Yeah, or change it if you need to. Like we were saying growing up, they all change. They're like fluid, aren't they?
Yeah.
If you want to be an alcoholic one day and a sober curious person the next, well, who gives a fuck?
True.
Yeah. If labels are not helpful in you either becoming sober or maintaining your sobriety, focus on the million other reasons you have chosen this sober life. Labels are only one tool in your toolbox.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, isn't it? You can just find other reasons. You know, labels can frighten you into it. They can open the door like Sober Curious did to us, or they can play no part in it at all.
Yep, doesn't have to play a part at all.
Use labels less yourself.
True.
Do not label people is what I'm trying to get at here.
Yeah.
The labelling of people can often reflect the one doing the labelling just as much as the person they are labelling.
Yes.
Use them less in the hope that you break the cycle and improve the world. Humans are a little more complicated than labels allow.
Very good, Hamish. That is very true. Yeah, we're not just labels. There's so much more to us. I'm not just an alcoholic. I'm a mother and I'm a lover.
and a brother.
I'm a brother, a lover, a mother, all those things.
Now, Vic, I know you like making up stupid words. Have you got a few new labels for us to add to the list? Ones that the sober curious peeps out there might prefer to alcoholic?
Yeah, I've got toilet hugger, ex-porcelain worshipper.
Yeah, nice.
Yep. A previous pisshead or a retired carrot hurler. That's a good one.
I know you really enjoyed writing this bit.
Yes, I did, yeah. Early wake-up warrior, teapot emperor.
Yep, sure.
Sunday hero, no more pavement pizza princess. You know, I love writing this, Hamish, don't you?
This is like your
of
Christmas
course,
come early.
Yeah, it is. The best one, of course, is the sober awkward superstar.
Yeah.
Much better than pisshead or blithering bog-eyed booze bandit.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's a few there for you can pick from.
You use sober legend a lot as well.
Yes, a legend.
Yeah, sober legend's nice.
Legend is a good word. So what we're saying today, Hamish, is that labels give us the mental coziness of sticking something into a well-ordered little box. They help bring order to our thoughts so that we're able to make sense of our complex existence and hopefully navigate life a little bit more easier.
On the flip side, labels dupe us into having a false sense of knowing, flatten our experience of people and their worth, and close ourselves off into a rigid mindset. Labelling can prevent us from seeing the world through fresh eyes.
Yeah. By dropping the labels, we make room for the unknown. We are then able to perceive things as they are, moment to moment, rather than reducing everything to a symptom or a diagnosis. By dropping the labels, we're letting go of being in control and making room for life to show up in surprising and mysterious ways.
What we're saying is, if a label helps you thrive in your sobriety, use it. And if it's uncomfortable, then ditch it. Do what works for you and what feels right in your heart. And don't worry what box others put you in. Isn't that right, Vic?
Yes, it is, you middle-class, big-nosed, narcissistic father of one with OCD and overly empathetic tendencies. It is.
I do not have OCD.
Okay, sorry, but you do. You are a big-nosed narcissist.
I'll take the rest of it, yeah.
We've got a quote, Hamish, to end on.
Yes, so I want to end with a bumper sticker style quote that I think sums up the use of labels for good and for bad in one. Okay, so addiction is giving up everything for one thing. Recovery is giving up one thing for everything.
Oh, I love that one, Hamish.
The simpler the better with quotes, isn't it?
Yeah, it is so true as well. Like, you feel like you're giving up that one thing, but actually concentrate on what you're going to get, because what you're going to get is going to be amazing, and you can ditch those labels or keep them or do whatever you want, whatever feels right. It won't matter when you're sober, because you realise none of that matters. All that matters is that you're happier, and that's it.
Beautifully put.
Yeah.
We should play music under the background of that.
And we could skip off into the sunset in our mankinis.
Now we're getting into a hot car. We're going to go drive through and sweat and balls off back to our children.
And look sad.
Yeah, that's life.
Oh, thanks for listening, everybody. Bye-bye. If you're questioning your relationship with booze, you're struggling to moderate, or your hangovers are causing anxiety, it might be time to reach out for some support.
Yeah, just talk to a mate about how you're feeling, contact a local doctor, find an AA or sobriety group. Vic's got one.
Yeah, just head to www.cuppa.community.
Remember, if you're questioning yourself, it might be time to seek support.
Even though this journey can be awkward, it is definitely worth it. And if you've enjoyed the Sober Awkward podcast, don't forget to review it, rate it, and share it with your mates.
Do they have to share it with their mates?
Yeah, of course they do. I'm not doing this for nothing, Hamish. Bloody hell.
How do they share it?